Baby, let me give you an unforgettable surprise.
No one cares about my fear. You forced me to do this. I have no choice. Was it love or a scam? He is going to destroy me. I'm fighting for justice. All the vows I made have been destroyed by you. On my birthday, my boyfriend invited me to see the sea of clouds. He stood by the cliff railing, waving at me. His 3 childhood friends were there too. Everything seemed normal. I walked over, completely unsuspecting. Suddenly, he picked me up and lifted me high in the air. I'm 5 feet 3 inches and he's 6 feet 3 inches. In one swift motion, he gripped me with both hands and held me out over the railing. Below was a sheer drop of thousands of feet. Every slight tremor in his arms sent my heart into spasms. His 3 mates clapped and whistled, egging him on. I was too terrified to move a muscle. After what felt like an eternity, he finally set me back down on solid ground. My legs had turned to jelly. He just gave a sly smile, got down on one knee, pulled out a ring, and said with utter sincerity, "Becky, will you marry me? You can trust me completely. Just like a moment ago, no matter how dangerous things get, I will never let go of the hand that protects you." His friends chanted in unison, "Marry him. Marry him." Summoning every ounce of strength I had left, I kicked out at him and unleashed the first swear words of my life. "Marry your bloody ancestors. You absolute lunatic." Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Everyone was stunned. Harry Chadwick was caught off guard as my kick sent him to his knees, looking like he was paying respects at a grave. He narrowed his eyes, barely containing his anger. "Why are you upset? It was just a joke, a little game to make our proposal more memorable." After 3 years together, I could read his expression and knew this was no mere game. He was trying to train me to be submissive. If I married a man like this, I'd have to sleep with one eye open at all times. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. I pointed at his nose and said, "A joke? Treating you like a human being would be funnier than this joke." It was the first time I'd lost my temper in front of a group of people. His friends tried to mediate. "Harry really just wanted to show off his strength to you. If he truly meant to harm you, would you still be standing here talking if he'd let go?" Ha, what shameless logic. I laughed bitterly. "Are you saying I should be grateful for his mercy in letting me live?" The only woman among his friends, Megan Baker, said sarcastically. "Oh, come on, when will this end? You're blowing a joke way out of proportion. If you can't take it, don't play." I snapped back. "Who do you think you are to butt in? If you can take it, let them all have a go at you." Megan's eyes welled up with tears as she pouted. "Harry, I was just trying to help smooth things over." "Why is she insulting me like this?" I retorted, "Before you ask why others treat you a certain way, ask yourself why first. Ask yourself if you're being pathetic, if you're asking to be scolded, if you're acting like a fake innocent." Jack Turner got angry when he heard this. "What kind of talk is that? Why do you think we all came out here this early morning? Wasn't it for your proposal?" Caleb Brown chimed in, adding fuel to the fire. "We even tested Harry's strength on that cliff to make sure it was enough. No good deed goes unpunished." "Oh. So you all knew about this beforehand? Or did you plan it together? You lot are truly asking for divine retribution with your good intentions." I suddenly understood why Harry had gone mad today. His group of friends had always thought I was too headstrong. They often half-jokingly, half-mockingly said Harry couldn't handle me. So it wasn't surprising that they'd conspired together for this outrageous test. What a bunch of despicable lackeys. Seeing that I was truly angry, Harry came over to appease me. "Becky, we've been together for so many years. You know I love you," he said. "I've actually been preparing for this proposal for a long time. I did it that way just to make you trust me completely. If you don't like it, I won't do it again in the future. Put the ring on first." As he spoke, he tried to slip the ring onto my finger. Unable to resist his strength, I took the ring. A flash of smugness appeared in his eyes. Jack laughed and said, "After scolding us for half the day, you two have made up. Does that make us the fall guys?" Megan pouted, playing hard to get for so long, but you still accepted it in the end. The three friends and Harry exchanged knowing glances, smiling at each other. Just as they were looking smug, I suddenly swung my arm in an unexpected move. The ring flew in a beautiful arc towards the cliff. Harry lunged at the railing, trying to catch it back. He used too much force and nearly flipped over the railing. Jack and Megan grabbed him tightly. The three of them sat on the ground, pale-faced. Harry shouted at me angrily, "Are you trying to kill me?" I smiled faintly. "You're still quite far from death, aren't you?" I was much closer just now. Harry was speechless for a moment. After a pause, he shouted again, "That ring cost me 6 figures. "Oh, that is quite valuable," I replied. "Why don't you look for it again? Maybe you can't see it clearly inside the railing? Shall I hold you up over the cliff to have another look? By the way, why are your faces so pale, you three? Are you scared or just can't take a joke?" Megan Baker suddenly burst into tears. She had scratched her arm when she grabbed Harry. Now she was whimpering and complaining about the pain. Harry gently patted her, comforting her, "It's all right, it's all right." I watched coldly. Megan's coquettish behavior and Harry's tenderness seemed so natural and harmonious. They truly looked like a perfect match made in heaven. At this moment, Harry looked at me with a gloomy face. "Becky, so many of us came just to give you a surprise. You don't even say thank you, and you act like this. Isn't that going too far? Surprise? You mean to shock me and amuse yourselves? You wanted to scare me and embarrass me for your own entertainment. And you have the nerve to ask me to say thank you? Do you even deserve it?" The three childhood friends glared at me angrily and started to stir things up. Talk about no good deed going unpunished. It's only because Harry is soft-hearted, otherwise who would marry you? Always causing trouble, you don't even know your own limits. This really made me laugh. Although Harry is a lawyer with a good income, I'm also a white-collar worker at a listed company, more than capable of supporting myself. In their eyes, it seems like Harry marrying me would be doing me a huge favor. Just because he's a man, does that give him a sense of superiority? I really don't know how I could have been so blind before, to have dated someone like this for 3 years. Harry said coldly, "I'll say this now. I'll only buy you an engagement ring once. If you can find it, we'll continue. If you can't find it, we break up." Break up? Really? I trembled with excitement. To them, it looked like I was afraid and regretful. Megan snorted, "Harry, make her apologize to me. I have to say, what terrible taste you have, choosing such an uncouth woman." Hearing this, Harry sternly ordered me, "Apologize to Megan." Looking at his face, I wanted to tear it into shreds. "I really hate this," I said. "It's too late for regrets now. Only if Megan forgives you, I might forgive." I cut him off. "I hate that I'm not an octopus, so I can't slap all 8 of your faces at once." Harry's face instantly turned as black as an old pot that had been used for decades. I turned and walked down the hill without looking back. Seeing how resolutely I was leaving, Harry chased after me. "Becky, you've always been so even-tempered. How can you just flip out like this?" I spat and said, "I'm even-tempered because I'm well-mannered, not to indulge shameless people." He tried to grab me again. I stopped and stared at him steadily. "Harry, if you touch me again, I won't hesitate to scream for help or call the police." Harry reluctantly withdrew his hand. He's a lawyer. He knows how severe the consequences would be if he forcibly restrained me in public. Megan shouted angrily from behind. "Who do you think you are? If you have any backbone, don't go back to your shared flat. TCH, barking dogs. More like wild dogs barking, not worth paying attention to." After coming down from the hill, I immediately called my best friend Phoebe. I asked her to bring her boyfriend and a few other friends to help me move out. I couldn't stand staying in the flat I shared with Harry for another day. Phoebe asked if Harry and I had another row. I told her it wasn't just a row, but a breakup. I was worried Harry would come back and try to force me to stay, so I asked her to bring some strong lads as backup. In the past, when I'd mentioned breaking up, Harry had cut his wrists. At the time, I was touched. Now I suddenly realized he didn't do it because he loved me, but because he wanted to control me. Before Phoebe and the others arrived, I needed to start packing. I hadn't even finished with my clothes when Harry came home. As soon as he saw me packing, he fell to his knees. Becky, I love you so much. How can you abandon me? He pleaded. What I did was truly just to ensure our marriage would be built on absolute trust. I won't do it again. Please don't leave. Harry, I can't be with you anymore, I said coldly. No matter how nicely you put it, you can't hide the fact that you want to control me. I see that clearly now, so save your breath. Harry swore up and down that wasn't his intention. I replied icily, I don't believe a single word you say. You might as well save your energy. Seeing I wouldn't budge an inch, his face darkened. Becky, you'd better take the olive branch I'm offering. Do you really think you can leave if I don't want you to? Ha! You've got some nerve. And you're not going to let me leave? Are you planning to hold me here against my will? Illegal detention? Don't flatter yourself, he sneered. Have you forgotten what I do for a living? I won't do anything illegal. Everyone knows we're a couple. Even if you call the police, they'll just see it as a lover's quarrel. Do you really think you can win against me? I suddenly remembered that Harry had previously shared many cases of violence between couples or spouses with me. In the end, most of these conflicts were resolved internally. Women would return to their families only to be beaten again, often even more severely. Through these means, men would train women to be as obedient as dogs, never daring to seek outside help again. Thus, the man would successfully establish his own kingdom, himself as the king, and the woman as the slave. The desires unfulfilled in civilized society would be realized through marriage. I suddenly understood his purpose in sharing these cases with me. Although he seemed extremely angry when recounting them, he repeatedly emphasized that even as a lawyer, he was powerless in such situations. He wanted me to believe that in these circumstances, a woman had no choice but to beg for the man's mercy. Wasn't this just another form of his manipulation? Only more subtle. He had almost succeeded. Because in that moment when he threatened me earlier, I truly thought as he said. My first reaction was that even if I called the police, he would ultimately get away with it. And I might have to live in fear for the rest of my life, terrified of his revenge. I thought I might as well beg for forgiveness, and at most we could go our separate ways afterwards. You see, it's truly impossible to guard against. He had almost succeeded in manipulating me. I broke out in a cold sweat. I solemnly said to him, when it comes to the law, I certainly don't know as much as you do. But when it comes to human nature, I understand it better than you. If you dare to restrict my actions against my will, I will definitely press charges until you can no longer practice law. Think carefully. Haha, trying to intimidate me with the law? You're the first one. Just try and see. As he spoke, he stood up and snatched my phone away. He was 6 feet 3 inches, I was 5 feet 3 inches. He worked out regularly, while I spent most of my time in an office. Physically, I was indeed no match for him. He seemed to have gone a bit mad. I tried my best to calm myself down. I didn't know how far he would go in his frenzy. I thought it best not to provoke him and to stall until Phoebe arrived. Seeing that I wasn't resisting, Harry said smugly, "Women are more lovable when they're obedient. Just like pandas, they're adorable when they're docile. If you're good, I'll treat you even better." I sat silently on the sofa. Harry noticed I was barefoot, so he went to the shoe cabinet, took out my slippers, and knelt down to help me put them on. "Becky dear, it's so cold, why aren't you wearing shoes? It breaks my heart to think you might catch a chill. Tell me, what other man would treat you as well as I do?" I nodded. He then got up and squeezed a glass of orange juice for me. Just like during our 3 years of dating, he was gentle, polite, and caring towards me. But throughout this whole process, he kept his eyes fixed on me, with a glint of madness in them. It was as if a crazy, perverted person was hiding beneath his gentle exterior. As time ticked by second, I started to feel uneasy. Given the distance, Phoebe should have arrived by now. Why hadn't she come yet? Harry crouched in front of me. Becky, we've been together for so long. It's time we got married. My parents would be happy to know this in heaven, he added. I couldn't bear to listen anymore. I pretended to accidentally spill my orange juice, staining my entire outfit. I stood up and said, I need to go to the bathroom to clean this up. He said, go ahead. Then he followed right behind me, standing at the bathroom door and staring at me. I asked him to wait outside. He gave a sinister chuckle that sent chills down my spine. I picked up a bar of soap and started cleaning my clothes. With him there, escaping through the front door was unlikely. If I screamed, he might deal with me before the neighbors could hear. The only thing I could think of was to carve a message on the soap. The bathroom window was open. I could throw it out when he wasn't looking. I had just written 2 letters when I suddenly felt a presence in the mirror. I looked up to see Harry's reflection open his mouth. Becky, you've disappointed me so much. I've been so good to you, yet you keep playing games with me. He snatched the soap away and slowly erased the 2 letters. So my Becky likes soap, does she? It's just a small bar. If you like it so much, how about I put it inside your body later? It seems I need to use harsher methods to make a lasting impression on you. Otherwise you keep forgetting that you belong to me. As he spoke, his hand slowly slid down from my neck, deliberately caressing my sensitive areas. Tell me, how can I make you remember your place? Should I tattoo Harry's dog on your chest or your buttocks? His gaze turned sinister. A box appeared in his hand out of nowhere. He placed the box on the sink and slowly opened it. To my horror, it contained a set of needles and ink. I said shakily, Harry, think this through. You have such a bright future ahead of you. He replied tenderly, what use is a bright future without you? How could I not have you? You're right here, aren't you? Just go outside for now. I'll change my clothes and come right out. I'm not going anywhere. I tried to soothe him gently. He looked solemn. Becky, no more lies. If you lie to me again, you can't be my dog anymore. You know that would break my heart. I nodded vigorously. He put away the box and walked out. I quickly locked the bathroom door. I tried to call 999 on my smartwatch. Before it could connect, he hung up the call. Harry's roar immediately came from outside. You wretch! You betrayed me again. Calling 999? You want to get me locked up. You're so vicious. How should I punish you? Apparently the watch was linked to my phone, which was in his possession. He could see right away that I had made a call. He had pretended to leave earlier just to test me. Such a cruel person. Harry started kicking the door. I braced against it, looking around for any tools while praying for Phoebe to arrive quickly. Knowing I was no match for him physically, I tried to stall for time. Harry, calm down. There's always a solution, right? You want me to love you, but how can anyone love someone who hurts them? If you're good to me, won't I love you then? He fell silent for a moment, then spoke in a lower, coaxing tone. Becky, be a good girl and open the door. I won't hurt you. I'll only love you, in my own way. Just then, my phone suddenly rang. It was Phoebe's special ringtone. Harry burst into maniacal laughter. Ha ha ha, I almost believed you. I forgot you had contacted that Phoebe. Are you waiting for her to save you? Do you know how much that whore moaned under me? My head was spinning. Harry had just said I forgot you had contacted Phoebe. That meant Phoebe had indeed told him I wanted to break up and leave. No wonder Phoebe hadn't shown up yet. And no wonder Harry came back so quickly. In the past when we argued, Harry would drink with his mates until midnight before coming home. He must have rushed back after learning I was really going to leave this time. But did Phoebe really have an affair with him? Phoebe and I grew up together, supporting each other all the way. We've been through so much together, like family. Would someone like that really betray me? I desperately wanted to know the truth. But now, I had no time to think about it. I only knew that I had no one else to rely on anymore. If I wanted to save myself, I could only depend on myself. Looking around the bathroom, there wasn't even a broom to be found. Harry was kicking the door again. "Becky, you just wait. I'll make you wish you were dead." The door was shaking violently, about to give way. I broke out in a cold sweat. But I still forced myself to stay calm. In this situation, failing to fight back could be disastrous. But not fighting back meant handing myself over to a madman. Sitting back passively was not in my nature. With a loud crash, the door was smashed open. It hit the mirror, sending shards of glass flying everywhere. I quickly grabbed a piece and hid it behind my back. Harry gave me a contemptuous look. "Ha, Becky, you've read so many books, but still don't understand? The strong rule, the weak are property of the strong. That's an eternal truth. Did you really think you were an exception?" He advanced towards me step by step. My hand involuntarily gripped tighter and tighter. The glass cut into my palm, sticky blood soaking my hand. The sharp pain helped clear my head. I was waiting for an opportunity. I pretended to be terrified, shaking all over and too weak to stand. He was no more than a meter away from me. I collapsed onto the toilet seat. He laughed, admiring me like a predator eyeing its prey. "Becky, you've been naughty," he said. "You're about to learn what happens when you try to escape your master." His deranged, manic face drew closer and closer. I lowered my head. It's amazing how easily a man can pretend to be good. For 3 whole years of our relationship, he never showed a single flaw. He was always so warm and cheerful. A top university graduate with a successful career. Handsome, with a great physique. He didn't smoke or swear. Always polite and well-mannered in public. To my parents, he was the picture of filial respect and humility. Who could have imagined the darkness and perversion lurking inside him? Standing before me, he commanded, "Look up. Let's see how the beauty queen of Oxford begs her master." "Harry, what's the point of all this?" I asked. "Does torturing me give you satisfaction?" "Yes, I want to conquer you," he replied. "It's not too late to lick my boots. Beg me, and I might show mercy." I looked at him, feeling a whirlwind of complex emotions. This was the man I had chosen. The man I had once thought of marrying. I couldn't bring myself to utter a single word of pleading. Enraged by my silence, Harry struck me hard across the face. "Beg me. Say you're my dog." The slap left my cheek burning and my ears ringing. I defiantly raised my head to meet his gaze. I never thought I'd have to speak to an animal while still living as a human. He leaned in close, gripping my collar between clenched teeth. "You must have a death wish." Perfect. He was so close, so steady. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. I suddenly raised my hand, aiming the shard of glass at his throat. His years of working out served him well, his reflexes were lightning fast. In a split second, he managed to dodge most of the blow. The glass only left a shallow cut on his neck. But it was like a powder keg had been ignited. His eyes blazed red with animal fury, his roar deafening. "Becky, you brought this on yourself," he snarled. "Did you really think I hadn't noticed the glass in your hand? I wanted to see if you'd actually try to hurt me. I gave you chance after chance, but you threw them all away. I graciously offered to make you my personal pet, but it seems you'd rather be everyone's stray. I'll make sure you get your wish." With that, his fists rained down on me in a vicious assault. I curled into a ball in the corner, arms wrapped protectively around my head. I tasted blood in my mouth. But I told myself to endure it. Enduring was my only chance at survival. After a while, seeing no reaction from me, he assumed I had submitted. He picked up the shard of glass I had used and made 2 cuts on my neck, mirroring the one I'd given him. "Remember this, Becky," he hissed. "This is only the beginning. All punishments will be repaid double." I lay motionless on the ground. Harry thought I was dead and panicked. When he realized I was still breathing, he burst into tears of joy. I thought he had truly gone mad at that moment. He even took out a towel, dampened it with water, and wrung it out. Walking to my side, he propped me up into a sitting position. He used the towel to wipe my face. Becky, darling, I love you so much. How could you bear to hurt me? Can't we just be happy together? I cried, Harry, we are fine. I won't make trouble anymore. I'll do whatever you say. Then tell me, who am I? You're my master, my everything. That's a good girl. Don't learn from those feminists. They're all out to harm you. I nodded vigorously, I'll only listen to you. Harry looked at me with a hint of suspicion. Becky, did you know I had a dog back home when I was young? I treated it as well as I possibly could. Later, it went into heat and sought out other dogs. Do you know how heartbroken I was? I was so good to it, yet it still wanted other dogs. So I stopped letting it go outside. It bit me once. After that day, that dog no longer existed in this world. Do you know how much that pained me? You won't make me feel that heartache again, will you? I quickly shook my head and clung to him. I won't cause trouble, Harry, I really won't. Is your proposal from this morning still valid? I'll find that ring even if it kills me. I'll never let you down again. As I spoke emotionally, tears streamed down my face. Harry kissed away my tears and said, Becky, I'll be good to you. Don't cry anymore. It's all right if we can't find the ring. I'll just buy you a new one. I was even more touched. Harry carefully tended to my wounds. He even had the presence of mind to tie a bow around my hand. Sweetheart, now it's time for us to rest properly. I nodded shyly. But my head was spinning. I stood up and leaned against the wall, stumbling after a couple steps. Harry scooped me up in his arms. His arms were incredibly strong. He didn't even breathe heavily while carrying me. I rested my head on his shoulder. Harry was clearly pleased with my response. I could feel the muscles in his back relax slightly. Walking to the bedroom, he bent down and gently placed me on the bed. He tried to straighten up, but I hooked my arms around his neck and closed my eyes. He chuckled softly and leaned in to kiss me. The moment he pressed against me, I gently placed my left hand on the back of his head to hold him in place. Just like before. His breathing grew heavy. With my right hand, I pulled out the razor blade and slashed viciously at his carotid artery. A rabbit kicking an eagle, it had to be one decisive strike. This was my last chance to save myself. So I waited patiently until he was weak enough, then struck faster and harder. This blade, I had removed it from his own razor. As it cut through the artery, there was a slight resistance, as if it had merely caught on stubble. I guess he would be wary of me using broken glass as a weapon, so that previous attempt was just a setup. I had failed then. I had begged him softly. Something I had never done in our 3 years together. He became arrogant, truly believing he had conquered me. Even as the blood sprayed out, he stared at me in disbelief. He pressed one hand hard against the wound, desperately trying to stem the flow. With the other hand, he tried to grab me. I coldly reminded him, the harder you press, the faster you'll bleed out. If you want us to die together, you'll have to see if you can last long enough for me to collapse first. Now he was finally afraid. It was his turn to beg for his life. He pulled out his phone to try to call for help. I was too panicked and accidentally knocked his phone from his hand. It fell and skidded away. He crawled over to try to pick it up, only to despairingly find the screen had shattered. That's exactly what I told the police later. Blood gushed out of Harry's wounds and mouth in large amounts. He no longer had the strength to resist me, only able to plead with his eyes for me to save him. His mouth opened and closed. I stood over him and asked, "What are you trying to say?" He whimpered 999. I said, "What should I do? I don't understand sign language. You need to speak more clearly if you want me to help." He finally realized I was doing this on purpose, and became angry and anxious. "Becky, are you really going to watch me die?" "No, I won't watch you die." A faint smile appeared on his face. "I knew you couldn't bear to." I said with a smile, "I'm going to the police station now. You can just die by yourself. I won't watch anymore." He violently coughed up a mouthful of blood and collapsed on the ground. The doorbell rang. Harry rolled his eyes with difficulty, revealing a hint of joy. I guessed it must be because he thought someone who could save him had arrived. Was it Megan Baker and his other childhood friends? But given Harry's personality, he wouldn't want them to see him in such a state, with his pathetic love and twisted hatred for me intertwined. So he would definitely make excuses to keep them away. Then, could it be Phoebe? Would Phoebe really abandon me to save him? I was quite curious to know the answer. As these thoughts ran through my mind, I walked towards the bedroom door. Harry contorted his body, trying to follow me out. The door was just one step away. But he had no strength left, lying limply on the floor. No phone, no power to defeat his opponent, his life and death in someone else's hands. He could finally experience for himself this taste of fear and despair. He stared at me pleadingly, his eyes full of desperation. I slowly closed the door under his gaze. Those eyes that once looked at me so tenderly, gradually lost their light. "You really don't have any softness in your heart?" he asked, almost breathless, still unwilling to give up. I nodded. Yes, I wouldn't soften even a bit. If I had miscalculated anything today, it would be me lying helplessly on the floor instead. Despair was what he deserved. I walked into the living room and froze in shock. I thought it might be Phoebe, but I hadn't expected her to already be inside. "How did you get in?" I asked in confusion. Phoebe blushed and said, "I know the passcode. I knocked for ages and no one answered. I was worried something had happened, so I came in." Seems her relationship with Harry goes back quite a while. I feigned surprise and asked, "Where are the movers?" She countered, "Hasn't Harry come back yet?" I shot back, "Was Harry supposed to be back already?" She glanced around but didn't see Harry, then said with flushed cheeks, "Becky, since you and Harry broke up, you don't mind if he and I are together, right?" "You two? You're together?" "Yes, we have been for a while now. He told me he loves me. Every time you went away on a trip, he had me stay over." "Phoebe, how could you do this to me?" "Why?" "I'm the one who wants to ask you why. I've always had better grades than you, I'm prettier than you, and I met Harry first. You stole him away using underhanded methods. Is that what he told you? And you believed him? So you didn't come to save me? Weren't you worried I might die?" How pathetic. My best friend and my boyfriend were sleeping together behind my back. And I was foolish enough to seek her help. "Why would you die?" she asked. "He's such a gentle person. He never even raises his voice. He said he just wanted to talk things through with you properly. If you want to break up, that's perfect, then he and I can be together openly." I gave a bitter laugh and pointed to my face, neck and palms. "Look at this. Does this seem like something a gentle person would do? You must have done something terrible to provoke him then." I finally understood why some women fall for scumbags. Phoebe was a textbook example. I took out my phone. Phoebe immediately tensed and asked, "What are you doing?" "Calling 999 for an ambulance and the police. Just for a couple slaps? Is that really worth calling an ambulance and reporting to the police?" Phoebe's shrill voice made my head spin. I ignored her and started dialing. She suddenly snatched my phone away, shouting hysterically, "Becky, you can't call the police. He's a lawyer, this would ruin him. I'm trying to save him." I insisted. "I won't let you do this," she screamed maniacally. Crack! Smash! She violently threw my phone against the wall, shattering it to pieces. She smirked triumphantly. I smiled too. I called out towards the bedroom, "Harry, did you hear all that? It's not that I don't want to save you. Your lover won't let me save you." There was a thud from the bedroom. Phoebe rushed in. She immediately slipped and fell flat on her face. The floor was covered in Harry's blood, slick and sticky. He must have been trying to stand up by grabbing the bed sheets. But he ended up pulling down all the tools he'd laid out to subdue me, without managing to get up. Phoebe crawled over to Harry with red-rimmed eyes. Harry could no longer speak. He just stared at me blankly, tears streaming down his face. Phoebe called his name frantically, but his gaze never lingered on her for even a second. Phoebe pulled out her phone, sobbing as she shakily dialed 999. Suddenly, footsteps sounded from outside the door. A chill ran down my spine. Who could it be this time? I quietly walked out of the bedroom. To my shock, I saw Megan Baker standing there. My heart skipped a beat. I had planned for everything, except for Megan's arrival. She glanced down at the blood on my feet. "Is he dead?" she asked. I calmly replied, "I don't know." I was about to call the police and ambulance, but my phone is broken. I made sure my answer was airtight. She thought for a moment, then handed me her phone. "Use mine to call the police." I hesitated. From the bedroom came Phoebe's heart-wrenching cries. Megan ran to take a look, then came back urging me, "Call quickly. This will make it easier for the police to believe us." Suddenly, I remembered what she had shouted after me on the hilltop when I stormed off in anger. "If you have any backbone, don't go back to your shared flat." I thought she was taunting me then. But she was actually warning me. Pity I didn't understand at the time. The police car and ambulance arrived almost simultaneously. Phoebe went with the ambulance. Megan and I went to the police station. I recounted everything that had happened. I was forced to defend myself. When Harry lost the ability to fight back, I wanted to call the police and emergency services, but Phoebe stopped me. All the evidence at the scene was consistent with what I said. Megan also confirmed that my phone was broken and couldn't be used to call for help. So I borrowed her phone to call the police. Megan was considered to have a closer relationship with Harry. So her testimony in my favor was given credence. In the end, it was determined that I had acted in self-defense. As we walked out of the police station, snowflakes began to fall from the sky. It was the first snow of the year. Phoebe and I would usually share an extremely spicy hot pot together during the first snow every year. Unfortunately, things have changed. Harry lost too much blood, leading to multiple organ failure. He had been in the ICU for a while. Phoebe's deep love for him was beyond my imagination. Harry had no family, so Phoebe stayed by his side the entire time. For a full 2 weeks, she spent over £300,000. Since Harry's money couldn't be accessed, Phoebe used all of her own savings. But Harry still hadn't woken up. The doctor hinted that she might lose both her love and her money. Phoebe refused to give up. She even took out a high-interest loan, begging the doctor to use the best medicine to save him. After 20 days, Harry finally opened his eyes. Phoebe was overjoyed. But the doctor said this was his final moment, to say what needed to be said quickly. Phoebe fell onto him crying, "I love you and I don't regret it. In our next life, let's be together sooner." Harry glanced at her and said, "Please, let Becky come." Phoebe looked at him in disbelief. "Was your love for me a lie?" But Harry could no longer answer. He slowly closed his eyes, without leaving her even a single word. Phoebe stood there like a fool, motionless for a long time. Harry's assistant suddenly contacted me. He said that Phoebe was guarding Harry's body and wouldn't let anyone handle it. She seemed to be mentally unstable. I said I had nothing to do with either of them anymore. "Please stop contacting me." The assistant said, "Mr. Chadwick left all his assets to you." That was unexpected. As we were talking, Phoebe suddenly burst in. She said Harry's medical bills totaled over £700,000, which she had paid out of pocket. Now she wanted to be reimbursed from Harry's estate. The assistant said, "The boss's entire estate belongs to Ms. Becky. Expenses you voluntarily paid cannot be claimed as debt. If you disagree, you can file a lawsuit." When Phoebe heard that Harry had left everything to me, she let out a sudden wail. Then she abruptly fell silent and fainted. When she regained consciousness, Phoebe was no longer Phoebe. She became patient number 59 at the mental health hospital. The series of shocks had finally broken her, and she went mad. I donated all of Harry's assets to charities supporting women and children. For someone like him to contribute something to vulnerable groups, I suppose that's a fitting end. I reported the cliff incident to the police. Jack Turner desperately apologized, begging me to let him off the hook. But if apologies were enough, what would be the point of having laws? Megan didn't know about this beforehand, she only found out when it happened. However, Harry had leverage over her, so she didn't dare warn me directly. She deliberately acted like a flirt, actually intending to provoke me into leaving Harry. She wasn't involved in the conspiracy, so she wasn't punished. Jack Turner and Caleb Brown were given administrative detention for disorderly conduct, because they had conspired with Harry about the Cliff incident beforehand. Jack Turner, being a government employee, lost his job after his workplace was notified. Somehow this incident spread online. Jack and Caleb became social pariahs, unable to find work. Harry, already physically dead, suffered another social death. Some people said I did the right thing, while others called me heartless. Whatever they say won't change my perspective. No one has the right to harm others at will. Even if you claim it's safe, even if you say it's well-intentioned, even if you call it love. It's all essentially manipulation. Manipulation can be hard to detect. So, love others, but love yourself more.